the Bunnyman.
And I'm Crazy Susie.
And welcome to In the Eyes of Terror.
We're back again with our 13 Nights of October, and tonight is number 8.
Yes. We're getting to the point, and we're sort of getting tired.
And the movie we chose for tonight, because I nitpick things, has drove me a little bit crazy, but you know.
A little.
We just have to push through and get through it.
Yes.
An hour and a half long movie took us 2.5 hours to watch because I'm an avid note taker, and the only thing Bunnyman writes down is kill points. So
No, I write down a few other things like jokes and stuff.
Well, yeah, you write down minuscule notes, and according to you, I write a novel. So
Yes, sort of do. I just take nice little outlines.
I basically could write a screenplay for these films, and he just writes down a few notes. Anyway, the movie we're doing tonight is Tales of Halloween. I was pleased to notice that Rotten Tomatoes actually had a post for this one. That made me happy. This movie was released October 16th of 2015. It is rated R. It is a comedy horror. It's 1 hour and 32 minutes long. It was the longest hour and 32 minutes of my life. You can view it on Amazon, Netflix, iTunes, or Vudu. We watched it on Netflix. IMDb score is 5.5 out of 10. We're going back to the sad scores again. I'm not really sure how the Goosebump movies managed to score such a high score.
Because they're Goosebumps. Do.
That nostalgia gets high points, let me tell you. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 79% fresh score, so you know it's got to be pretty good.
And this is not like any of the other movies that we've done so far. This one is an anthology.
Right, there's 10 separate stories. Each of those were written by different people. So I feel it's only appropriate to give each one credit. You know, normally I say, this is the director, this is the writer, and typically that's one or two people. Well, in this case, we have a laundry list of people to mention, and the cast is quite lengthy as well. So we'll get through it. I promise you we will. There are a couple directors. That is Darren Lynn Bousman, and Axel Carolyn. And the writers for the segment called The Night Billy Raised Hell was written by Darren Lynn Bousman. The segment that's called Grimm Granny Ghost was written by Axel Carolyn. The Trick segment was written by Adam Geisroch. I'm sure I butchered that name. I apologize. This Means War. That segment was written by Andrew Kosich. Bad Seed was written by Neil Marshall. Ding Dong was written by Lucky McKee. Friday the 31st was written by Mike Mendez. Sweet Tooth was written by Dave Parker. The Ransom of Rusty Rex was written by Ryan Schickfrin. The Weak and the Wicked was written by Paul Sollett. And there are a ton of writing credits in this. Those were director credits. Their writing credits, if I had seen that, I wouldn't even have mentioned it. Anyway, Sweet Tooth was directed by Dave Parker, or written by Dave Parker. The Night Billy Raised Hell, Clint Shears. Trick, Greg Commons. Grimm Granny Ghost, Axel Carolyn. Ding Dong, Lucky McKee. The Weak and the Wicked, Molly Millions. The Weak and the Wicked, Billy Jackson.
So a lot of the same directors are the writers.
Some are different though. This Means War was written by John Skip and Andrew Kosich. Friday the 31st was written by Mike Mendez and Dave Parker. The Ransom of Rusty Rex was written by Ryan Schiffrin. and Bad Seed was written by Neil Marshall. So some of them did actually direct the portion that they wrote. Not all of them. There was a few that were slightly different. I just hate to not give people credit for their work. I apologize for getting tongue-tied. Okay. So there is a radio DJ that gives some little backstories and things throughout the film, and she's just a voice. She isn't really given a name. The actress that does that is Audrine.
Are you sure it's not Adrienne Barbeau?
Barbeau, okay. The character that plays Sweet Tooth is Hunter Smith. The character that plays Timothy Blake is Cameron Eaton. Mrs. Blake is Carolyn Williams. Robert Russler plays Mr. Blake. Claire Kramer plays Lieutenant Mathis. Greg Grunberg plays Alex Mathis. Daniel DiMaggio plays Mikey. We have another Mikey character in this one. Austin Falk plays Kyle. Madison Eilsman plays Lizzie. Barry Bostwick plays Mr. Abaddon. Marcus Urquhart plays Billy. Christopher Dinnick plays Mordecai. Ben Stilwell plays Todd. Natalie Costello plays Brittany. Adam Baskill plays the dentist. Adriana Curry plays Adriana Curry. She plays herself. Rachel Jordan plays the alien. John F. Beach plays James. Tiffany Nielsen. Sue plays Lynn. There is a full cast in this film, as you can imagine. This film has 10 stories that are woven together by their shared theme of Halloween in an American suburb where ghouls, imps, aliens, and axe murderers appear for one night only to terrorize unsuspecting residents.
One night only in the suburb of hell.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm pretty sure that's all I had planned on mentioning in that part. Okay? And it begins with the DJ's introduction. And she says, "Attention, all you trick-or-treaters. It's time to get your ghoul on, for tonight is All Hallows Eve, my favorite time of year. All of the town really comes to life on October 31st when witches and ghouls, devils, imps, and monsters roam our town."
Okay, so I thought the interesting part, the intro, like when it's going through the suburb, I guess, is that it had a pop-up storybook feel to it. It was a digital pop-up. And you don't really see that in a lot of movies. So I really did enjoy that aspect. Just as it sort of set the feeling, the layout of the town.
And they do this a lot in the movie. It's very, I don't know, they do a really good job, I think, with the music and just the whole background setting of it. They do a really, really good job just to give the feel.
And if you hear weird stuff, that's because of our dog has decided that she's found something outside.
I think there may be a bug on the sliding glass door that she's trying to get to. So the first tale that we get to see is called Sweet Tooth.
This brings back some nostalgia for me. There's actually a game that one of the characters is called Sweet Tooth. It was a Twisted Metal. So I was thinking Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal, not the kid. Well, Sweet Tooth was a clown with flame hair in Twisted Metal. So
again, we hear some intro from the DJ, and she says, "As the holiday activities begin, the streets are filled with all kinds of creatures of the night. Some wear masks to disguise their dark intentions, while others choose to hide in plain sight. So, warning to those of you collecting your treats and filling your bellies. Keep your wits about you and don't forget to check your candy. The scene starts with a boy dressed in a pirate costume, dumping his treat bucket on the coffee table, checking out, he's dumped his candy out on the coffee table and he's checking out what all he got. What I really like about this scene, and I think is really funny, is he's spreading his candy out and he's looking at it. He comes across an apple, he picks it up, he looks at it, and he chucks it over his shoulder. Like,
well, it's a good thing because it might have razor blades in it.
He was like, what the heck is this thing? Like, kids on Halloween forget what healthy things are. Like, he knew what it was, but he was like, what the heck is this thing doing in here? And he just, flings it over his shoulder. That thing's no good. That thing doesn't belong in here. Like, it's some kind of worm or something,
Yeah.
Throws it over his shoulder. That thing doesn't belong in here. And he's just opening candy one right after another, like he hasn't had candy in years.
And
like this is the thing he's been craving, and he's just like they taste so good. He's just shoving it in his mouth, just biting into it, like it's grandma's Thanksgiving Day pie that he's not had in a whole year, and it's just, oh my God, this is what I've been craving. It's so good. Just
He's got that look of ecstasy on his face,
right.
And it's just
it's kid crack.
It's kid crack, but I mean, at the same point, it was okay. But I mean, I think they overdid it a little bit on the whole like, I've never had candy before,
right. It was like kid crack. It kind of reminded me like our dog does this weird thing when she eats certain things and her forehead will pulsate. It's kind of like that, I don't know. But he's got this look on his face of pure pleasure, and he's just eating this candy and he's just making all these noises, and he's just going to town. Well, his babysitter is there, and she's not in the room, but her boyfriend comes in the room, and he tells him, you need to slow down. You got to save some of that candy. And the little boy looks at him, he's like, why? Like, why would I do that? This is my one time a year when I could just eat myself silly with candy and nobody cares. And he says, and this whole time, this horror movie is playing on the TV in the background.
Okay, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but all the horror movies in this are black and white.
Yeah, they're black and white ones.
Okay, they're also all public domain. And I can name about maybe the majority of them.
Well, it makes sense that they're public domain if they're playing in a film.
Yeah.
So he explains, 50 years ago, Timothy Blake lived on this very street. He loved Halloween. He loved to dress up. He loved to go trick-or-treating, but he dreaded going home because his parents would take his candy every year. He never got to enjoy eating his Halloween candy. His parents would take his candy and send him upstairs to his room. So one year, Timothy decides that he's going to go downstairs and he's going to see what happens. Why did his parents take his candy? What happens to it? Because that's exactly what the little boy asked him. Well, what happens to his candy? What happens to all that candy?
It's like, what's the point of going trick-or-treating if you're not going to eat any of it?
He goes through all that trouble and gets all this candy, but he doesn't get to enjoy it. What's the point? So, that night, Timmy snuck downstairs to find out what really happened to his candy. What his parents really do.
Well, his parents were complete douches.
Well, he finds his parents on the couch together with his candy strode everywhere. Well, they're eating his candy, enjoying his candy.
It's not really eating the candy. It's more of a orgy of candy. It's just,
yes.
It's a really gross scene. I don't really care for watching people eat anyway, but they take like a lollipop and they're both licking it at the same time. They're shoving everything in their mouth. They're laying around basically doing like snow ain't candy angels in it.
Right,
it's just,
yeah.
It is just everywhere.
One of them would have candy and a half of a piece of candy in their mouth, and the other one would bite off the other half, and they're tonguing each other with candy in their mouths and all that. It's very sexualized candy eating, and it was creepy. It was really, really creepy.
I mean, it even the scene as the camera was panning towards them, it was like seeing those scenes where pieces of clothing were coming into a couple on a bed.
It just made it creepier. Anyway, beyond that, okay. So, seeing his candy strode everywhere and all the wrappers, and his parents blatantly enjoying his hard work, this enraged Timothy. So he waited for his parents to fall asleep. They fell asleep with...
I'm presuming in a candy coma.
In a candy coma, yes. With chocolate all over their mouths. So he goes and gets the biggest cleaver they own. And he kills them. Very brutally. And he sits down and he eats every piece of candy that they didn't eat. Well, that didn't satisfy him. He wanted more. So he thought, well, there is more candy. There's candy inside my parents. So he cuts them open. And he eats every piece of candy he can find inside them.
Nothing says, tasty like a chocolate covered intestines.
Yeah, yummy. So, well, that didn't satisfy him, so he wanted more. So Timothy comes back every Halloween looking for candy. And if you don't leave candy out for him, he will take whatever candy he can find, including candy you've already eaten. So the babysitter's boyfriend tells Mikey, so you can't eat all your candy, Mikey. You have to leave some for Timothy, or he will take candy, even candy you've already eaten. So they proceed to put Mikey to bed, and Mikey tells the babysitter, your boyfriend's a douchebag. Is that really true what he said? And she says, that's just a story they tell kids, Don't listen to anything he says. And so Mikey, just to be on the safe side, when his babysitter left the room, he puts a great big candy bar a couple of feet from his bedroom door on the floor. Not close to his bed, but a couple of feet on the floor from his door. Just to be on the safe side, I don't blame him. Okay. So he gets in the bed. He lays there. Downstairs, you see the babysitter sitting on the couch with the boyfriend, and they finish off all the rest of Mikey's candy. Well, they both have a bellyache.
Well, go figure. And both the parents and the babysitters, what douches. Just infuriates me.
I understand if there's candy in your kid's bucket that they don't like, that you eat that, but how are you going to sit and eat all of a kid's Halloween candy? All of it.
Yeah.
That is really a jerk move.
It really is.
And she's like, you realize we're going to have to go buy candy because we ate all his candy. And the guy's like, yeah, I guess so. Really? So she says, well, I'm going to go get the Pepto because we obviously have stomach aches. I'll be right back. So he stretches out on the couch and she walks away. And you hear this really deep voice say,
trick or treat. Ding dong. Hello.
No, there's trick or treat. You keep hearing this like off and on. Mikey hears it and Mikey's like,
my tum-tum's rumbling.
Mikey was all freaked out, but Mikey wasn't going to get up. Mikey was like, I
only have a hunger that only chocolatey hands can fill.
Mikey's like, I'm not getting out of bed. You hear trick or treat. Really deep voice saying it. So, yeah. So the boyfriend, his name is Kyle. You hear all kinds of racket in there where he is. The girlfriend thinks that Kyle's getting sick. She runs back in there to see if he's okay. He's turned around like he's been throwing up over the couch. She flips him back around, and we'll just say that his throat is no longer inside.
No. His throat is still inside. It's his lower intestine that happened to come out through his mouth. So we come to our first kill score. for this one. So, Sweet Tooth sticks his hand down Kyle's throat and proceeds to go whoop with his lower intestine.
Yeah, he's trying to very quickly extract the contents of his stomach.
Yes.
He really wanted that candy.
So, I give it a 3 out of 5. What do you give it?
That sounds about right.
I felt it was very creative and sort of a throwback to like Tromaville. You know, it reminds me of Troma. It's Troma-esque for me. I mean, it's not like jump roping, but it's close.
He must be very skilled at this because he did it without getting any teeth marks on his arm.
Yeah.
He's skilled.
Or Kyle is just very good at deep throating things.
I don't think that's appropriate. Then Mikey is traumatized because he hears the girl scream, and that prompts him to hide under the bed because we all know when you hear girls scream, bad things are coming. And of course, then you hear again a deep voice saying,
Trick or treat.
yeah. So you hear the girl scream, you hear a thud, then you don't hear any more noise. Then you see Mikey's bedroom door open, a bloody covered hand with very long black fingernails reach in, grab the chocolate bar, take it out, the door slams shut. The next scene, you see the parents pull up, they come into the house, they make a comment about how there's food, there's candy everywhere, a trail of candy, and they're like, oh, Mikey must have had a good night. They walk into the living room. They see the babysitter and the boyfriend with...
And they sober up real quick at this point.
Yeah, they were drunk, so they were kind of stumbling in and everything. Well, they walk into the living room and they see the boyfriend and the babysitter dead on the couch. And Mikey's there, and Mikey says, they ate all my candy. And that was the end.
Yeah, so... I know.
It didn't actually show the babysitter being killed,
No.
but you have to assume she was killed in the same fashion as the boyfriend because she's presented the same way as him.
Well, and that's a lot of these stories. You don't actually see a lot of the kills.
Yeah.
Like I said, it reminds me a lot of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and that you hear the noises, but you don't actually see the blood. Your mind fills in the blanks.
Right.
So... I know we don't usually do this, but do you want to sort of give our... We don't have to score them, we just give them our impression. Like, do you like it or not? Each one.
I like this one. I thought, I think every little town has some story similar to this for Halloween, you know.
Yeah, there's, it's sort of the evil Santa Claus tale for Halloween. Because there really is no... There's the folklore of Halloween, but there's not any sort of, like, there's the turkey for Thanksgiving, there's Santa for Christmas. There's really no being for Halloween.
Mm-hmm. You may have to do this in 2 parts, because it's going to be long with all the 10. No, I mean, when you post it, you may have to post it in 2 parts.
Yeah. So, okay, I like this one. I think it sets a really good mood for the series.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get on to number 2.
And the second story in the series is called Billy Raised Hell. Okay, the scene starts with a girl and her boyfriend and her kid brother. And they're all dressed up for Halloween. She is a cheerleader. Her boyfriend is a punk rocker.
Also another big old douche.
Yeah, he's not so cool. And her kid brother Billy is a devil.
Billy!
He's got the big plastic devil mask. And her boyfriend says, how do you breathe in that thing? It's 100 degrees outside. And he says, I manage.
Well, because they're trick-or-treating in the middle of the day.
So Billy's all, I want to go trick-or-treat. And he's like, have you noticed? It's daylight outside.
But I don't know, because for me that's not a far-fetched thing, because a lot of city ordinances are now not allowing trick-or-treating past dusk because of issues. So to me, I was like, oh, okay, they're trick-or-treating during the day, like a lot of cities do.
So Todd, the boyfriend, tells Billy he is getting too old to just trick-or-treat. He needs to do more tricks. So he and Billy's sister tell him if he doesn't egg the neighbor's house, they will tell everyone that he's Billy Piss Pants.
Captain Piss Pants or something like that. He also insults him with a Leave It to Beaver reference. So his insults go as far back as 1950s Americana TV series. Classy.
So evidently they have a neighbor that doesn't put candy out, doesn't give candy out. So a lot of kids in the neighborhood have every year egged this house or toilet paper rolled or whatever this particular neighbor's house. So they give Billy an egg and they tell him, you have to go egg this house or we're going to make your life a living hell, basically. So Billy goes up to this man's house, reaches out his hand with the egg in it, and proceeds to throw the egg. Right as he does it, the man opens the door, grabs the egg out of his hand. At this point, Todd and his girlfriend, which is Billy's sister, start booking it across the street. The neighbor throws the egg, hits Todd in the back of the head. Everybody has a win.
Yeah, that guy deserved it.
Yes. So the neighbor grabs Billy, pulls him into the house. Billy is profusely apologizing. Well, this neighbor is literally the devil.
He's in the house of the devil.
Yeah. He asks Billy if his mother is dressing up this year. Well, Todd asks Billy the same thing. So evidently Billy's mother is like all that in the bag of chips and she dresses like a slut for Halloween. So everybody wants to know.
Yeah, because they mentioned one year she dressed up as a Catwoman. So I'm assuming like the 1989 Catwoman with that's the image I have, you know.
I don't know. Evidently she has a nice body and she shows it off on Halloween. So everybody has to know if she's dressing up. So, the neighbor pulls Billy into his house. And after Billy gets done trying to apologize, the neighbor explains. He says, see, everybody's always trying to mess up my house. You kids have done this year after year. You're all the time trying to tear up my house. He says, you want to know what pranks are about? I'll show you the ultimate prank. And the next thing you see is the neighbor and what you assume to be Billy, because it's his costume, leave his house. So they leave the neighbor's house and they knock on a door. You see the person who answers the door is dressed up like a dentist. And he gives Billy a toothbrush instead of candy and says, candy causes cavities. So Satan sharpens the toothbrush into a shank, gives it back to him, tells him to knock on the door again, says this will teach him a proper lesson to give Halloween treats, and tells him to stab him. So when the guy answers the door, Billy stabs him in the gut, and they walk away.
The gut or the leg or the groin. I'm not quite sure which of those three areas.
Somewhere in that general vicinity because, you know, kids are short. It's hard to know exactly which area they stab. Somewhere in there.
So we have a moral lesson here, I believe. So no matter if you are a dentist or not, don't give out toothbrushes and toothpaste. You know what you should look at, especially if you're a dentist? Money.
Right. If you give out candy, it's just going to give you more business. They go to Billy's house and knock over lawn decor and actually set some of them on fire.
I actually think it was Billy's house because his sister comes out.
Yes, that's what I said. It's okay. Billy's house.
Sorry.
Did you plug up your ears when you were taking a drink? They set up a line of cording or rope and pull it taut to knock over trick-or-treaters. They actually hold them up at gunpoint. They hold up a convenience store at gunpoint.
I mean, this guy, this creature, this Billy creature is having a good old time.
Yeah, and Satan is too. Satan lays in the middle of the street, holding his chest. A car stops. Someone gets out to help him. He asks, "Are you Adriana Curry?" And the lady says, "Why, yes, I am." He has the audacity to ask this woman for her autograph and then steals her car.
Yes. But the cool thing about Adriana Curry is that she also is in another segment of this movie. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. So he steals her car and he says, "How many followers do you have on Twitter? Or how many fans do you have on Twitter?" And she said 500,000. He said, "No, 500,001."
And I actually like his delivery because it was just sort of like that. It was just like, and one.
It's crazy. So he's like stalkery, and he stole her car. He lets the little devil boy drive around in her car trying to run over trick-or-treaters.
They're listening to hip hop. He's in the backseat eating fried chicken.
Chicken in a bucket, drinking a big slurp.
Yeah, just
He's just jamming out while the dude's trying to run over trick-or-treaters. He's like, this is the best night ever. They stop to spray paint. Billy Thompson owns the night on someone's garage door. They return to the dentist's home with an updated, sinister version of flaming dog poop, the prank. But this time, oh my God, you would not believe, okay, instead of just having a bag of flaming dog poop, they have that, but they set it on a bear trap.
so you say updated. I say it just brings me back to the good old flaming bear trap bank, 1930s. A simpler time when you light bear traps on people's front porch.
Who would step on that? What kind of dummy do you have to be to step on that? Well, the dentist is, because he steps on it. Yeah, he's not having a good day. He's not having good times at all. So, by the end of the night, cops, helicopters, dogs, everyone is out looking for Billy. So they head back to the neighbor's house. He enters and says, "Excellent work, Mordecai," to the little devil guy that's working with him. The guy pulls off his mask, and you can see it's not Billy. It's some little
Demon
minion guy. Billy is tied up in the house, and he says, "I thought you were going to show me how to do the best prank." Satan says, "Oh, I believe I have." And he says, "Your mother will have a lot of free time now, and I want you to know I will be sure to comfort her." And he shakes his tongue. Billy goes outside and is surrounded by cops, and he pees his pants.
So, I really enjoyed this one. I really liked the twist at the end. I just like all the action in it. I think it was like, especially when like
It was funny. This one I laughed the entire time about all the pranks and gags and.
I mean, I liked when the gun and all that, like just,
Yeah, because you think it's a little kid and he's like aiming the gun at people and people are like, "What the crap?" And he's shooting the gun in the air at the convenience store when I think they're like, "You can't be holding this up, you're a little kid." So he like puts the gun in the air and like shoots the ceiling and they're like, "Oh crap, he's got a gun."
Yeah, and just everything about it is pretty good. So
It is hilarious.
there really is no kill. So
There's no kills, but lots of laughs.
the way that we do it, it has to be on screen.
Yeah.
So
You have to be able to see the death. So
right.
yeah, the dentist obviously didn't die. He just kept getting tortured. So
Yeah.
poor
He
guy.
just had a bad night.
He just had a really no fun times for him. The next story is called Trick, and the scene starts out at a house where two couples are watching a horror movie.
I think it was Night of the Living Dead.
I don't know. And taking turns giving out candy to trick-or-treaters. They're drinking and smoking pot. After a couple of trick-or-treaters, a little girl rings the doorbell. She says nothing, just stands there. She's in a witch costume. She has no bag or bucket for candy. The guy giving the candy has been drinking, so he's a little confused. So he says, "Trick or treat." His girlfriend inside laughs and says, "That is what she's supposed to say. You must be drunk." He repeats, "Trick or treat," a couple more times, and the girl lunges forward with a large chef knife and stabs him multiple times in the gut and says, "Trick," and walks off.
Okay, so our first kill scene. I give it a 1.
But he doesn't die. You don't see him die.
He's going to bleed out slowly
Yes,
out
but
of death.
you do not see him die.
All right.
You can give it a 1. You don't see him die.
Yeah.
You actually do not see this man die. You can give it a 1 because you know eventually he will die, but you don't see him die. He stumbles back inside, holding his stomach. Eventually the others realize what has happened and run to him. One of the girls run to her car. A kid is under her car and cuts her Achilles tendon.
And I think that was really cool and like really intelligent.
Yes, that was very smart because that renders that foot basically useless. When your Achilles tendon is cut, no matter how much you want to use that foot, you can't bear weight on it. That foot it might as well not even be there. It's useless.
All the things you learn from listening to a podcast about horror.
So she can't use that foot. When she manages to stand, she attempts to stand again. A group of costumed kids surround her and all stab at her and hit her. She tries to go back to the house and stumbles and falls into the pool. This is the second kill.
This is the second
She
kill.
got stabbed multiple times by 4 or 5 different kids. Her Achilles tendon is cut. That's where her main artery is. She's been stabbed multiple times, and she just fell into a pool. You have to assume she's dead.
Yeah. So 3.
Yep. Just the scene where they start just hacking at her is pretty awesome. They're
Yeah.
just like...
Well,
They surround her and they just look down at her. And
I would-
it's like mob mentality. Hack, hack, hack.
I would give it far less if it wasn't for the Achilles heel.
Achilles tendon, yeah.
I mean, that's what when you actually go into real physics, real like you know how the body works.
The other guy in the house he turns around from where his friend is, and he goes to go into another room to get help. And there's a girl in the corner of that room, and she has a homemade blowtorch, and she just blows him away with this blowtorch. Gets his face, his upper body, and she just blows him away. So he gets knocked over with this blowtorch. Once he falls down from all the heat, she jumps on his chest, opens his mouth, dumps a bunch of rat poison in his mouth, and then puts a big piece of duct tape over his mouth.
Okay, kill scene number whatever 3. Yeah.
No, it's 4.
4. Okay, so I give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah. You can tell that she actually did. They may have magnified the heat coming from the blowtorch, but she actually handled some sort of heat source because she was like wincing. The girl that handled the blowtorch was like wincing from the heat. You could see her face wincing.
Well, it wasn't just that, but it was just the pouring of like getting on top. It was quick. It was just bam, rat poison, duct tape, go.
She poured the rat poison in his mouth. It started foaming up, and he started like gagging and choking. And she just like slapped the tape on, and she gets up. She picks up a piece of candy off the floor, puts it in her mouth, and drops the wrapper on his chest and just walks on like it's just another day. Like, just another day at work.
But the thing that you ranted and raved about was, do they still make powdered rat poisoning?
To my knowledge, it's only in pellet form, but, whatever. Semantics, I nitpick over stuff. But anyway.
So you give everybody else a 5-second whatever. Well, I had to listen to a 20-minute rant about how powdered rat poisoning shouldn't exist.
I don't think it does, but, it's a movie. So, the last girl runs off and hides in this room that looks like it's got hanging plastic in it. The light's very dim and red tinted. She proceeds to call 911. She dials 911 but doesn't hit the call button. And you're sitting here wondering why. What the hell is wrong with you, chick? Why do you not call 911? What is wrong with you? Well, then she starts deleting photos. And these are some messed up photos you're seeing. You're seeing photos of her and her friends holding eyeballs. Pictures of them with kids strapped to tables where they're removing their eyeballs.
They have definitely an eyeball fetish.
So obviously Her and her friends are doing some messed up stuff, and she's trying to delete the evidence. So she's hiding off in this room. Those kids come back they find her in the room, they turn the light on, and you see a little girl tied to a table. She only has one eye, one has been removed. They untie the little girl and give her an axe. She goes over to the woman who is crying and huddled in a corner. The instruments and the body parts that they had used, the implements that they had used to remove the body parts, and the body parts they had removed are scattered throughout the room. The little girl, who's missing an eye, stands before her, raises the axe and says, "Happy Halloween, you sicko," and brings the axe down and splits her head open in two.
Okay, so another kill scene. She got axed.
Yes, she did.
So I give it a 1 because I would have tortured.
Well,
Because he has some gnarly torture devices in there.
they had like 3 or 4 tables that were just full of implements that they had used on these kids. And that girl
and pegboards.
had pictures. They all had pictures on their phones. They were showing pictures to each other when they had trick-or-treaters coming to their door.
Yeah, actually, one guy looked at one girl like I could do some bad things to you. You know, he looked at one girl like really creepily.
So, I mean, these people have some serious in-depth issues. So I understand why these kids...
But I think this one, in my opinion, this one's worth a rewatch. Because when you're first watching it, you don't know really what's going on. And then when you watch it all the way through the first time, you could rewatch it again. It is really creepy the second time around. Because you know what the outcome is and what their past is and why they did this.
Why the kids did it?
Yeah.
But then it takes away some of the suspense, too, if you read it, when you watch it the second time. Mm-hmm. The next story... In the next story is The Weak and the Wicked. And the DJ starts the story out. "Now here's the tale for all you hood rats over there across town on the wrong side of the tracks. Keep your heads up and your butts down, 'cause the weak need all the help they can get. When the wicked come out to ride on All Hallows Eve." This story starts out and you see a guy in an alley going through a candy bag and shoving candy in his face. Like he is starving. What is up with all the people in these shows just...
Like they only get candy once a year and then they have to eat it that night or it disappears concept? I don't know.
Does candy expire?
Well,
After
I mean,
one
it
night?
does. Maybe if they got it in the summer.
Do they think it's going to disappear?
I don't know.
Is it magic candy that only appears on Halloween?
Or maybe Sweet Tooth comes door to door and steals your candy. I don't really know, but... And they all just like, they're just shoving it in their mouths. It's not pretty.
Yeah, he's like force feeding himself this candy. He's making noises. So he is really enjoying it. He looks up and notices one of the bikes chained up says Malice. It's a group of bikes, so I'm not really sure what that means.
But the word malice? Or just...
It says Malice on the bike, yeah.
You're not sure what the word malice means? Or...
I'm not sure what that means in this picture of events.
Okay.
But he knows whose bike that is the thing. That's what it focused on. 2 guys go up to him, one on each arm, and carry him over to the wall. They stand him up. They ask him, "Ain't you too old for Halloween?" One of them is drinking Everclear. A female walks up, lights a cigar. She says, "Show me Piggy's trotters." He sits down. As she approaches, he sits down. So the boys grab his leg, lift it up. She blows on the cigar to get it red hot on the end. He says, "Wait, wait," several times. She gets right up to his foot, but stops. They let him go, and he takes this opportunity to run away. They see someone at the end of the alley. It's a guy wearing bull horns. She approaches him and asks, "Do I know you, stranger?" Obviously, if she's calling him a stranger, I'm not sure she thinks she knows him.
Yeah, I thought that was the word stranger. The opposite of getting to know somebody.
Yeah.
And this guy does look really goofy. I mean, he's goofy looking with all what he has on. So
The boys look at each other. He hands her a picture of a creature and says it spills the blood of the wicked where the wicked have harmed the weak. It is a horned figure, so she asks him if he thinks he has turned himself into the monster with the costume he's wearing. She drops the paper and flicks her cigar at him.
like, yeah, take that.
And she has her henchman remove his horns.
And it's just like one of those like Viking, like a bad Viking helmet.
It's a helmet, like a biker's helmet. Like, that's supposed to protect your skull from getting harmed when you get into an accident, but it has horns added to it. It's strange. So, he runs away on foot. She tells her boys to mount up. They get on their bikes. They go after him. So, he's on foot. They're on bikes. You hear church bells chime. He runs off. It appears that they've caught him at this wall, but he manages to climb it and keep going. He runs them into this small trailer, and he stops there, and they catch up to him, and he turns around to look at them, and she says, "You'd be little Jimmy Henson."
Which he has like a flashback of the trailer burning and
Right.
him in a
He was a lot younger, and he was in a Halloween costume, and a girl and two boys that were close to his age were behind him, and a lighter was in the girl's hands, so they must have been involved in the burning of said trailer. He returned to the trailer his parents were burned up in. She says, "You'd be little Jimmy Henson." He says they didn't do nothing to you. She tells her boys to hold him down. They removed his beanie, and he says, "When the words are carved in flesh, the call is sent. Return them to the location of their offense. Then they are persuaded to kick and punch him to shut him up." She takes out her bat and whacks him with it too. She said, "You know, it's kind of poetic really. You and us together here on Old Hallows Eve. And just to top the cake, the icing on the cake, she gets the bottle of liquor from her brother and douses that on him too, like she's gonna light him on fire." She says, "There are no monsters here. There's just you and me." They hear a noise, and she turns, and there's the demon of All Hallows Eve. And you hear a scream, and a loud crunch, and a smile on Jimmy's face. And the very last thing you see is the not so beautiful face of the demon of All Hallows Eve. That's a face not even a mother could love. Woo.
and the blood splattering on Jimmy's face. So sweet revenge. So I think this is at this point this was one of my least favorite.
What was that?
Just I don't know. I like parts of it. Like I like the manuscript and it at the end it going through the different steps to call this demon. I just really didn't like the look of the demon all that much. And I just felt like the story dragged on a little bit. It really wasn't just for me. It just really wasn't. I just didn't care for it all that much. Like I said, I liked aspects, but I didn't care for it overall.
It seemed disjointed, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
So the next story is Grimm Granny Ghost. In this story, you start out at like a Halloween party, and the It is hosted by a lady that's like a fortune teller type lady, and she's telling a story, and it starts out with her saying, "Spirits roam the earth tonight. Do you know why we wear costumes on Halloween? So the dead doesn't know who is alive. There is one ghost who hates being seen by the living, Mary Bailey, because her face was horribly disfigured. And if you think you're being followed and hear a screeching laugh, don't look back because she will take your eyes." This was a story told at the party. So they all head home, and the daughter of the host heads home. She nearly hits a car, slams on her brakes. Her car stalls out. It will not start back, so she gets out of her car, looks under the hood to see if there's anything she could do to get it to start. There isn't, so she shuts the hood, accidentally closes her hood on her phone and cracks it. So she's unable to use her phone, so she walks home.
Well, that car just told her, we're done driving for the night. Just chill.
Yeah, and it's ironic because just a while before that, when she was leaving the party, her mother made the comment, "Oh, you're still driving that old clunker?" You know, her mother basically said, "This car's outdated, you need to get a new one." And, she was right. Mothers are usually right. So...
Well, okay, so if you're going to, look at your engine at night, make sure you grab your cell phone before you slam your car.
Yeah, that's always a good idea. So, she cracks the screen on her phone, so she walks home, and she's pretty scared. It's dark. She ends up getting scared by lawn ornaments of Mary Bailey that jump out, movable lawn ornaments. They kind of spooked her. She thinks she hears a laugh behind her, so she walks a little faster. She hurries to her door. She tries to get her keys in the door and she drops them. Go figure. She hurries to get inside. She finally gets in the door. She gets the door shut behind her. So she proceeds to try to, she calms herself down and, basically just tells herself, "You were just overreacting. You're fine." She changes her clothes and gets ready for bed and all that kind of stuff. She sits down, watches a horror movie. Actually, when she was in her bathroom just trying to get ready for bed, the door moves and it scares the crap out of her, but it's just her dog. And she tells herself, "I'm just overreacting. It's okay." So she's watching a horror movie. Her dog's on the couch with her. Something spooks him, so he jumps down and she looks down to try to figure out where her dog's going. And then when she pans her head over and looks back around, Mary Bailey is sitting on the couch right beside her.
And she whispers, "I just want to cuddle."
And that's the end of that one. That one was short, very non-climactic, if you ask me.
Yeah,
that was my least favorite.
And the ghost reveal didn't scare me at all. It looked like your generic, Nosferatu ripoff.
Well, it was just kind of like a profile type thing,
Yeah.
but,
The animatronic was actually really cool that she ran into. I thought that was better.
They put it right beside the sidewalk, or like a foot from the sidewalk, so when she walked by, it kind of sprung out at her, and it was pretty good. So the next story in the lineup is Ding Dong, like a doorbell. Ding Dong! Starts with the doorbell ring. Big surprise there.
Really? I thought it was a car door. Ding dong, ding dong.
I don't think that's right.
No, it's not.
So it starts with a doorbell ring, and there's fire on the screen with a really big red hand with long black nails. It says, "Jack and Bobby's house last Halloween. A woman is sitting in the living room crying. Her husband is trying to cheer her up. So he dressed up their dog as Gretel. She smacks her husband and turns into this creature and screams, "Where is my child?"
Yeah, because she's crying in a chair. She's lamenting. She's wanting, she's like, I want a child. Look at, it's not fair. And he not only does he get slapped.
I apologize. It's past our dog's bedtime and she's been very cranky.
It's not only does he get slapped, but he gets third hand slapped. And he gets laid out. I mean,
She turns into this wicked witch with like peppermint striped arms. Her hands are blood red. Her nails are big and huge and pointy and black. And she's like PMS on crack.
Yeah.
She has 4 arms and she just like attacks him. So this Halloween, she decides to dress up and has her husband dress up.
And he dressed up as Hansel.
And she dressed him up as Hansel, and she's the witch. She answers the door and does a show for every trick-or-treater about her being the witch and eating Gretel, eating her ear last so she could hear herself being eaten. And she has a lot of candy so she can fatten up Hansel so she can eat him like Gretel.
And then he has to say, would you like some of my candy?
Yeah, she actually pulls out a lock of hair from her mouth with an ear attached to it every time somebody knocks at the door. She's actually like making this gagging noise and pulling it out of her mouth. Like they have this whole little show.
Yeah.
It's quite deranged. I mean, it kind of sounds like something we would do, but it's quite deranged. I say that. But anyway, she gets angry and asks her husband, why does he make her do it? Why does he make her get angry? She decides to make cookies.
Because, when
you go into a fit of rage, you must bake cookies. You must.
Yes, and we always bake cookies on 666 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's the perfect cookie baking temperature. The doorbell rings, and it's a lost little boy. He offers to take him back to the sidewalk and help him find his mother. Oh, this enrages her. She wants to bring him inside so she can just comfort him and smother him with her motherly love. Well, the mother of the boy soon comes up the path to find him and takes him home.
Well, because her husband flicks on the light and sees this woman like sort of looking. And he's like, "Is this yours? Is this your child?"
Mm-hmm. She asks, "What's wrong with me, Jack?" He says, "People like us shouldn't have kids. The things you do to me, you shouldn't have kids. I went to a doctor and I had surgery, so I couldn't give you any."
You got the snip.
So this just totally enraged her. So she took him and she shoved him in the oven.
And then this is it's like a portal oven.
She opened the oven door and it looked like a regular oven until she started trying to shove him in there. And this oven just opened up to this crevasse. And it was like an endless pit.
Well, there's like teddy bears on, it was like, it turned into a stove oven with teddy bears on the corner. So
she turned into this
weird creature.
Crazy creature thing, and the oven turned into this abyss of
fiery doom.
All things that she has destroyed, I imagine, and he became a part of it. All because he refused to give her a child, because she beats the crap out of him and abuses him, and he didn't feel that was a good environment for a child. So,
well, there's that, and then so let's get to the end, and then we'll...
That is the end.
No, she starts crying and says something like, "I'm melting," like at the end, and she's like, "I'm melting," because she's crying. So one, where's the dog? Did she kill the dog?
I don't know. It doesn't show the dog after
after
the first scene.
So there's my thing, and then she dresses like I really wonder if she doesn't kill children and eat them like the real Wicked Witch. I mean,
I think she has schizophrenia or borderline personality disorder, and she's made all this shit up.
Well, and that really goes along with the director, because the director is actually one of my favorite directors, and Lucky McKee. Mm-hmm. You remember what he's done? Mm-hmm. He's done May and Roman.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like his MO is just like everything is weird to that.
Everything's a giant mind jerk. So
yeah.
I think she has borderline personality disorder, and she's just made all this junk up.
I think she really wanted a kid, but like I think he was afraid that she would eat them or something. Like she would get into this fit of rage and do what.
Well, because she can't have a child, it's easier for her to blame a non-existent man for her not having a child than it is to admit that she's a failure. You see what I'm saying?
So the man doesn't exist.
That man doesn't exist.
Okay.
So it's easier for her to blame that than to admit that her own body is failing her.
Well, that actually makes that story better with that explanation.
Okay, well there you go. We'll go with that. That works for me. The next one in the lineup is This Means War. The scene starts with a man carving a big box of carrying. Sometimes I can't read my own handwriting and I get carried away. The scene starts with a man carrying a big box of stuff outside. He starts getting out all of his Halloween decor. The whole neighborhood is decorated for Halloween, and he is serious about Halloween decorating. He decorates his whole yard. He has this whole get-up that he's been doing for like 20 years, and he gets his whole front yard decorated, has a sound system, the whole 9 yards.
He sort of reminds me of like an advanced home haunter.
Yeah.
And it's that typical...
He does the whole house haunt thing. That's right. So his new neighbor is setting up his own house haunt as well. So this year, there's competition.
Yes, but again, we have the neighbor who's initially setting up the one that he's done forever is actually he seems like a decent person. And the other guy and his friends seem like a bunch of douches.
Yeah. So this guy... like we said, has done it for years and years, and he likes things the way he likes them. He does the same thing. He might add a few things here and there, but he's pretty much kept it the same old, same old. And the newcomers, they like things hardcore. They listen to heavy rock music. They do a lot of blood, and they do animatronics. They do new age stuff. The other guy likes things old school.
And they have the music blaring, but he has a bunch of his friends also on the front porch, just like boozing it up. And they look like your typical, trope bikers. Yeah.
The new guy, they like things heavy metal. They do very detailed makeup, animatronics, all electrical. I mean, they do all the top of the line kind of things. Well... they were playing their music very loud. So the guy that's been there for a while went across the street and asked nicely, "Can you please turn your music down? It's very loud." And the new guy was like, well, the music is a part of it. I'm not turning it down. So they get into a battle. The older guy decides, well, if they're not going to turn it down, I'm just going to unplug it. So he goes up to their amp and he just jerks wires out. So the other guy decides, well, if he's going to mess with my display, I'll mess with his. So he goes over with a great big bucket of blood and says, "You know what your display's missing? It's missing some blood." The older gentleman comes over, and so he throws blood on him. And it starts a war. So they start fighting. Other neighbors start taking bets on who's going to win. And it just starts pandemonium.
It just turns into pandemonium at this point.
They're tearing up each other's displays. Skeletons' heads get knocked off. I mean, it just goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. The next thing you know it, both of them end up being impaled by a piece of wood that got broken that was shoved in the ground. The cops show up. The first cop that came on the scene vomited.
Yeah.
Because he came right after they both actually impaled themselves. One guy fell on the wood that was sticking out of the ground, and the other guy ran up and impaled himself too. They both got impaled on the same piece of wood. It's crazy how it worked out.
Like one guy was pushing him down, and he lost his own footing, and so
the other guy was already leaned over.
Yeah.
And they were pushing against each other, so that one lost his footing, and the other one was already leaned over past his center of gravity. So one fell, and it made the other one fall. Yeah. So they both got impaled on the same piece of wood.
Yeah. So the cop must have been a noob. I mean, that's all I could think of.
This kill, I think, gets a 5 out of 5. It is hilarious.
Yeah, and you can see it happening in real life. It was
right.
It was very realistic.
It was all over stupidity.
Yeah.
Just because somebody had to, show that they were the big man of the neighborhood and didn't want to turn the music down a little bit.
Well, I really like the juxtaposition of it, with the classic, graveyard compared to the new age chaos blood.
Right. I mean, they both could have done their own thing.
Yeah.
And, been peaceful and civil with each other, but they both died.
So
it was crazy.
This one, it was not bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad.
I think it was pretty good. And the next is Friday, the 31st. And our DJ starts this one out. She says, the olden days, on this night, it was believed that the veil between our world and the spirit world was at its thinnest. So be careful. However terrifying you might think you look, there's always something worse lurking out there. And on Halloween, nothing is what it seems. A girl dressed like Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz is running through the woods. And a guy, a great big man with a mask that kind of looks like a coconut shell, in overalls, wielding an axe, is walking after her. It doesn't appear that he is really breaking a sweat or anything. He's taking big strides.
This is your typical, slasher, 1980s slasher homage.
Yeah.
It was very Jason-esque, with the walking and the mask and even everything down to it was Jason-esque.
Yeah. So he's walking after her. Big strides. You know how it goes. So she comes upon this shed and decides to go inside to hide from him. She sees a pumpkin in the shed. Well, you could say jack-o'-lantern, but it really just has a little hole carved out of it. And it has a head inside. Evidently the head is of a friend of hers because she's really freaked out and says a name. I don't remember the name.
We could call it a case-o'-lantern. Because her friend's name was Casey.
It's a Casey lantern.
Casey-o'-lantern.
So he comes in the shed, he walks up to her and drops a head at her feet. She says, "You don't have to do this." She tries to hurt him by stabbing him in the stomach with a pitchfork. Yeah, he just kind of brushes that off like it's nothing.
Just Neosporin and a Band-Aid. It'll be good.
Yeah, he's like, rub dirt in it. You'll be all right. She attempts to run, but he grabs her leg. So she grabs a wrench, like a big monkey wrench, off of the shelf beside the door and beats him upside the head with it until he lets go. At this point, his mask is off of his face, and you're all regretting it at this point because his face is not nice to look at by any means. His face is very deformed. He gets up, and she's running at this point, not very quickly. And he stands up. He looks around. He sees this very long-handled spear sticking in a body by the door. How convenient. It's just right there. So he grabs the spear. He jerks it out of the body. He walks out the door, takes a couple of steps out of the shed. He pulls back this spear and he chucks it into the air. It flies through the air and falls perfectly right through her chest. And she falls and hits the ground.
Well, one of my favorite things about this scene is the look on his face. He's like, huh, that actually happened. Like, that worked? Like, he didn't look like he didn't even know that it was going to work. He just, you know what I'm saying? It's just, yeah.
He's like, huh, that worked pretty nicely. Yeah, it did. I mean, it fell totally center in her chest and she went down like a ton of bricks. So he's walking to her body, humming along. Like, good day's work. Not too bad.
He's humming along.
He goes over to her body. He takes his foot and he nudges her a couple of times just to make sure he got her good, wants to make sure she's not still alive. And all of a sudden, there's this really bright light above his head. He looks up and there's a spaceship above his head. And he's kind of like, He's making this noise. He doesn't really say too much. He's just making this weird noise. It's an alien spaceship. It sends down this teeny tiny alien dressed up in a Halloween costume. It says hello to the guy and waves. And the guy says, which you assume is hello, and he waves. It says, trick or treat, and holds out its little Halloween bucket. It holds out its little Halloween bucket as if to say, I would like some candy now. He pats down his pockets and says, I don't know. The little alien repeats, trick or treat. After repeating trick or treat several times, and him going, he gets very angry and goes, stomp! Evidently, he has no patience for little aliens that want candy, so he stomps it. Well, the little alien takes this time to get revenge, and he turns into this, I guess, smushed oozy form and slithers into the girl. Takes advantage of her body. So, he runs for the shed and shuts the door. The alien breaks the door down. And the deformed guy grabs an axe, puts it into the alien's neck. It doesn't faze it. The alien takes a pair of scissors and stabs it into, we'll say, I don't know, the deformed man, whatever, his shoulder. And he's like, what the crap? Blood's spurting everywhere. He's like,
they're both just like, why did you do that?
They're both squirting blood everywhere, bleeding, trying to do tit for tat scenarios. So they're both bleeding. He is screaming in pain and bleeding. He grabs a machete and cuts the arm off the alien. He's like, take that! Maybe that'll slow you down. So, the alien grabs a great big cleaver and he hacks one of the mutant's arms off. He's like, take that! Tit for tat. You take an arm, I take an arm. Okay, so the mutant guy grabs a chainsaw. Yeah, one arm starts the chainsaw with his mouth. He's a talented one-armed mutant guy. So he cuts the head off the alien. Alien, no head, chops the head off the mutant with the cleaver. This is just getting ridiculous now. Mm-hmm. So the mutant drops the chainsaw. It's still running. And then they both, one by one, or about at the same time, fall on top of the chainsaw and they're dead. So the alien climbs out of the girl's mouth, still in his cute little costume with his treat bag.
And he gets beamed up with his ship and the head of the mutant.
Yep, and
that's the end of that one. So I like this one. There's a lot of different.
I was waiting for him to say trick or treat again, and that's what I was looking for. I can't remember if he did.
I think he did, but this one.
I think he did say trick or treat, yeah. And he put his hand on the mutant's head, and he got beamed up with the mutant's head. Yeah. So they didn't give him candy, so he took the head.
So this one is one of the funnier ones, This one was hilarious because you've always sort of wanted to see something like that.
And the alien was so little. He was little bitty.
Well, it was cool because the alien was little and it was claymation.
That's why it looked different?
Yeah, because it was claymation. So there's also like 3 or 4 different homages. To me, there's a Jason's reference. Mm-hmm. Sort of a Hatchet reference in it too.
Yeah, with the axes.
And then Evil Dead, and then you could almost say it with the claymation, or just a claymation horror movie.
Did they use claymation in it?
Mm-hmm.
For what?
Oh, when he came up through the drain.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, I'm pretty sure there's other B-rated horror movies out there that are have a claymation something. So, I think that was the funniest segment out of all of them. And I just think it was funny that he also brought back to life, as the alien brought the girl back to life to be the... It
was funny when they were like kind of grunting at each other because the alien didn't have words, and the mutant was like, you cut my arm off, and he goes, cut your arm off. Yeah. You stabbed me, I'll stab you. There's like, okay, you did this, I'll do this. I'm sorry, I thought that was funny.
It was hilarious.
So the next one is The Ransom of Rusty Rex. And the DJ starts this out. You see the spaceship across the noon of the sky? Are you kids still up? Or are you tucked away in bed? The night isn't over, and you're far from safe. So here's a little something to keep you company. So you see 2 guys sitting in a van, scoping out a house, waiting for the kid of a rich man to leave to go trick-or-treating so they can kidnap him. So they wait for the little boy to go out of his house and go around the neighborhood. He leaves one of the neighbors' houses from getting candy, and one of the guys stop him and distract him by talking to him. And the other guy throws a pillowcase over his head, and they take him and put him in the van and take him back to their hideout place or whatever. When they're there, they tell him, now you better be good. We're going to call your dad. And you're going to tell your dad that you're okay. They call the dad. They tell him they have a son. He says, you've made a terrible mistake. And he hangs up on him. So they call him back. He says, don't call me again. So they tied this boy up, and at this point, he's broken free from his restraints. They find him and realize it's not a kid. So they have a gun, and this creature has managed to get their gun and point it at them. Thankfully, they don't get shot.
No, because it's pretty inept with the gun.
Yeah.
I mean, he started pointing at himself, and he was just like...
it shoots randomly. And there's not a whole lot of bullets in it, thankfully. They don't get shot because several times it manages to point the gun directly at both of them.
Well, before that, he called up the dad, and he was like, give me some money. And the dad was like, no.
He's like, it's your problem now.
Thanks.
Don't call me again.
Yeah. And then the crook was like, what? This is not how this is supposed to go.
This is bull crap. I'm calling you back. So they chase it down in the warehouse thing where they're at, and one of the guys take a wooden chair and break it over this thing's head and knock it out. They tie it up with rope, put it in like a potato sack and tie it up again. And they take it out by the river to throw it in a creek or a river or whatever.
I know. I think it was more of an oil pit, a tar pit.
A tar pit? Okay.
Yeah, it sounded more like a tar pit to me.
So one of the guys feels really bad because it's crying, and it's like blood-curdling cries. So they feel really bad. So he says, well, I want to check on it because I feel really bad because it's crying. So he opens up the sack to check on it, and it barfs on him. So after that, he doesn't feel sorry for it. So they throw it in the tar pit. They go back to their hideout, and it's there.
Yeah, just chilling.
No, that time they went back, and they both walk in their hideout, and one guy looks at the other guy, and it's behind the other guy's back, going, "Shh, don't tell."
Yeah,
that's funny. I found that part hilarious. So it follows them back to the hideout. They call the guy again, and the guy says, "Listen, that thing won't leave. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, it's gonna follow you everywhere. Oh yeah, by the way, be sure to feed it. If you don't, it's gonna eat."
And he got the unfortunate.
We're not there yet.
Okay.
So they take it to the quote unquote father's house, tie it up, put it on the front stoop, douse it in gasoline, set it on fire, and they leave. Again, it returns to them. Well, when they set it on fire, they left. They told each other, we're going to drive until the sun comes up. So
and
they
drive
get on
some
the road,
more.
and they just drive. They don't stop. They finally have no choice but to stop to get gas. You know, you have to have gas. So they decide to get gas and breakfast because it's morning. So one guy stays in the vehicle. The other guy goes in to pay for the gas and get breakfast. He comes back out to the car, and this creature is sitting in the back seat eating a candy bar. He takes a bite of the candy bar, and then he reaches down and grabs his friend's head, pulls it up, and takes a bite of the dude's face. And that's the end of that one.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know who the dad was. That was John Landis.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, he's director of, the Blues Brothers, Animal House.
I think he also played the Satan in that one.
No, I don't think so.
No?
No, that was another actor.
Oh, okay. Several of these played in multiple short stories.
One of my favorite lines was the demon kid, I guess would be the best way, punches him in the balls, and he goes, my nuts were viciously assaulted." So this one again was another funny one, and it was interesting how the story developed. Something of like trying to do a ransom to go find out that the guy got settled with the demon, because he ended up on the doorstep one year for Halloween and just never left.
Right.
And he was...
Yeah, the dad had said they were stuck with this thing for 5 years.
Yeah, they're under hostage.
Right.
And then now it's your problem, so thanks for setting us free.
Yeah. So the very last segment is called Bad Seed. So this segment's with a guy in his kitchen, and you see someone carving and scooping out the seeds of a pumpkin.
No, not just a pumpkin, but several. I mean, the guy had several pumpkins.
You just see scooping of seeds of a pumpkin. When he's finished, he shows his wife his big masterpiece, and it's this great big pumpkin, and he turned it into a jack-o'-lantern. I mean, they do have several pumpkins there, but it only shows the one that he carved as far as... That's the one he carved, was the great big one, but they have multiple pumpkins. That's just the only one he carved was the great big one. When he finishes, he shows his wife, and she says, "Yeah, you did a great job. I'm going to go upstairs and change and get ready for the party," or whatever. I guess they're going to go to a Halloween party because she goes upstairs and dresses in a cat costume or something. So she goes upstairs to change, and he says he's going to stay downstairs to clean up the mess. I don't believe that. What husband cleans up after himself? That, like, never happens. And so she comes back downstairs. When she comes back downstairs... So she comes back downstairs, and the jack-o'-lantern is eating her husband's head. Like, it is literally attached to his head. And he's standing up, it's on his head, he falls to the ground, it bites his head off, and come here. He's laying on the ground. The jack-o'-lantern bites his head off. You see it grow little sprout legs. And it crawls off. It goes through the doggy door and it's gone. So at this point, the wife is totally freaking out. She is totally, absolutely freaking out. I mean, she just saw her husband's head eaten by a jack-o'-lantern. So she calls the cops. And the wife tells the detective what she saw must have been a nightmare, because that's the only way she can explain it. So the next scene, you see a mother with her son out trick-or-treating, and she tells him not to go too far ahead of her. He goes and walks up to the next door. He sees a great big jack-o'-lantern with it. Inside its mouth is a whole bunch of bright, shiny coins. So he reaches in to grab one. And his mother hears him screaming. By the time his mother gets there, the jack-o'-lantern has half of his body inside its mouth. And all she could do is yell his name. I'm back at the police station. Detective McNally, who is the detective that's been assigned this case, is getting rode hard by her boss over all these Halloween-related issues and reports.
And he's your generic, like, hard chief. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, he's getting all these issues and everything, you know, crap rolls downhill kind of a thing. Yeah. So he's getting rode hard by his boss, so he has to get on to her for it. So,
but it reminds me of those, like, the 70s cop shows. Or again, this movie has different homages throughout the...
So he threatens her. He says, you know, you need to take care of these bogus reports or I'm going to have to throw you back in vice. And now we have another DJ insert. She says, greeting ghouls. 12 bells means the witching hour is upon us. That's when the weird, crazy, scary scale goes to total off the charts. So lock your doors and hold on to your candy because Halloween is about to get real. So McNally gets a call on her radio and heads to the location. The jack-o'-lantern jumps on her car. She shoots at it and it runs away. It goes into a display where all these other pumpkins are. And it's turned around, so all she sees is the back of it. She can't see that great big cheesy grin it has. So she's walking around trying to figure out where it is. It turns around and tries to lunge at her, so she shoots at it. She runs out of bullets. Well, one of the guys that was helping her out with the case just so happens... came out here and he just so happens to have brought a shotgun. I mean, the timing couldn't have been more perfect.
She goes, I'll get you that, you know, she was going, I'll get you next time. I'll go get you a drink or whatever. He was just parched. He was wanting that drink. His throat was a bit dry. Right. He was just carrying around a shotgun just because, you know, because he's a cop, right? Right? Yeah, so.
Well, evidently she has a stalker. There's this guy that came up to her when she was at the station that's been working this case with her that did a casting of one of the bites on the first person that was attacked and did a mold of the bites and told her this is how big the mouth was and everything, you know, because when they took the wife's testimony, they were like, this sounds like she's on something or she's in shock or something's going on. It doesn't sound right. Well, he just so happened showed up right when she needed him. He threw her the shotgun. She blew this pumpkin in half. Well, she picks up a chunk of it with a label on it, and it reads 100% organic giant pumpkin. So she finds out where the source of this pumpkin came from, the grower of the pumpkin, and she goes to the location. She asks to see where this pumpkin was grown. It was grown in a lab. So the lab tech of where they grow the pumpkins at, let her go in with the other guy that's running the case, let her go in and see where these pumpkins are grown. They go in, and these pumpkins are grown in this great big warehouse. I mean, it is like 3 football fields of nothing but rows and rows and rows and rows and rows, as far as the eye can see, of these giant pumpkins. And that is the last scene you see. And the DJ says, "The witching hour is over. Thanks for listening. And until next year, happy Halloween."
So I think what would make this, like, the end scene would be better would be the chick and the guy just be like, "My God, it's gonna be a long night. Saddle up."
And they just spray them with pesticides and kill them.
I know, but I'm thinking of, like, 70s cop movies.
I mean, they did make a comment, something like, "Oh my God, look at them all." I mean,
yeah, but
that guy did.
But I think it would be funny, to do the generic, like, cop movie ending, or looks like we're going to be at it all night.
It'll be more than a night. There's tons of them.
But so I think this is one of our longest recordings. And this might be out a little bit late, so sorry about that. But editing.
Yeah, it might be out a little late, and it's probably going to be a 2-parter, just because it was like a whole bunch of little mini movies all in one movie.
Actually, this recording is probably longer than the actual movie is.
But anyway.
So what do you rate it overall?
Overall, I'd probably give it a 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm about the same, because there are some really, really good ones,
and there's some that,
like just like some of them are just like, why? Just weren't either flushed out, or it just seemed like they took forever to get to the point.
Right.
But
they're short. They're like short stories on film, basically.
Yeah, and I like anthologies. You know that. Anthologies are sort of one of my favorite movie styles.
I mean, I think they're fun. I mean, I do think they're really fun. Even the last one I really liked. The idea of a killer jack-o'-lantern, you know.
I mean, how Halloween is that?
Yeah.
So, it's just, but some of them were just not that great. It's like, it seemed like the middle two weren't that good.
Mm-hmm. And I don't see how Hansel and Gretel have anything to do with Halloween. No.
And again, Lucky McKee is a better director on long format than he is in short format. He's good for about an hour. Like, if he could do a film for an hour, he's good. It's just, I think, in short, just because the way he does things, it's very hard to translate in a half an hour. I mean, not 15-minute slots, in my opinion.
Well, I hope you all have enjoyed our 13 nights of October so far, and we are going to keep on keeping on, finishing those out for you, just because we love Halloween so much. And I'll stop talking that way.
Yeah. So, okay, because, like I said before, because of our iTunes, RSS feed only allows us to have 10 at a time up on iTunes until we pay. Again, we don't have the money to pay for the service right now to get the full. We are using YouTube as a placeholder, and I release basically 2 or 3 films at once, so when I get around to it, our iTunes is first and foremost, and then the YouTube. So we'll be putting them out throughout the rest of the next couple of days.
And our illustrations for each episode will be where?
On Instagram, and We can upload them to the Facebook if you want to, and on Twitter. So, but we'll make a special announcement for that one, and we could even do like a video for it. But I want to get all the illustrations done before we make that announcement, and have that running through probably to Thanksgiving, and then maybe even have like a Thanksgiving contest.
We're gonna do some kind of drawing after we finish all of the 13 days of October.
Mm-hmm.
So
Keep your ear to the
everybody be aware of that.
Yeah, and we'll tell you
We
what
haven't quite decided exactly how we want to do it yet.
Well,
so we're working on it.
And the illustrations take about a day to do.
Yeah, we want to have them all completed before we do it. That way, they can be viewed. So,
yeah.
Anyway, we've drug it out long enough, and thanks everybody for listening, and we'll scare you later.
Yep. Bye.